All right, so welcome to another episode. Here with me today, I have two very special guests. My nutritional and health coach here, Jodi and Martha, certified nutritional coach and master's in education, and one of her clients here, Martha, who's been an overwhelming success. And we want to kick off today with talking about Jodi's special birthday.
Well, I have to say I'm really excited. I turned 50 yesterday, and
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. And since the topic of our podcast is anti-aging, I wanted to share some of the things that keep me feeling and looking younger than 50.
Well, we all need some tips on anti-aging, what's current, what are the good trends that are happening, and dispelling some of the myths and trends that we've seen now that aren't so good for you.
Okay. Well, the first thing I wanted to say is that a lot of people do these things because they just want to look good. And it's not just about looking good, and Martha can attest to that. It's the way you feel inside and being able to live the best possible life you can, because you're only here once. And when I look at Martha, and I have to talk a little bit about her journey, when she first started with me, 7 years younger than now, she wasn't able to do a whole lot of things that she's able to do now. And can I please share the staircase story?
Yeah, go ahead.
When I first met Martha, she couldn't even walk up the stairs. And it wasn't necessarily because she was grossly overweight. It was just because her body was not in the shape that it needed to be functional. And I remember seeing her belaboring those stairs, walking up 1 foot to the next foot on each step and holding on for dear life. And now 7 years later, she's running around like a 25-year-old. She's chasing after her 5 grandchildren. She's running up and down the stairs constantly at work every day. I just see such a transformation. Not only does she look amazing, but she feels it. And that's what this is really all about. It's about looking great, absolutely, but it's so much about feeling great and living your best life, because like I said, we only go through here once, and you want to do it the best you can.
So Jodi, I hear that one of your number one passions is finding ways for anti-aging.
Yes. And I kind of have to tell you the backstory behind that, because there is a reason why I'm so passionate about defying aging. I grew up in a home with not a very healthy family. It didn't look like that. My dad was a professional bodybuilder in Europe, and he was in phenomenal shape physically from the outside. At 34 years old, I was 14 at the time, he had a brain aneurysm. He looked great on the outside, but his insides were not healthy. He had a brain aneurysm, and they attributed that to his smoking, his drinking, and of course a high-fat diet, even though he was exercising. He also had very high stress levels and never learned how to manage that stress. And I began from a really young age to say, wait a second, he looks really good, but how did these things happen to him? How did his health start to fail? 2 years later, at 36, my dad had his first heart attack. Now he's 36 years old, 14 years younger than I am today. Still, of course, looking wonderful on the outside, but a brain aneurysm and a heart attack by 36 really made me start to think there's something more to this. By 40 years old, my father was a type 2 diabetic. At that point in my life, that's why I went to school for what I went to school for. I was going to learn how to not only look good on the outside, but to be able to stay healthy and be able to enjoy my life and be around for as long as possible for the people that I love, and to be able to enjoy those people instead of being ridden with disease. And unfortunately, my mother and my brother also suffer from many lifestyle illnesses as well. And I only hope that people seeing this podcast will be able to say, you know what, I want to give myself that gift of life and a good life, and will take the next step that they need to make those healthy changes that they need to be here for as long as they can and live the best life.
You know what I really notice about those who have true inner health as a healthcare provider versus they're just fixing up the exterior, maybe with some plastic surgery. And I'm not opposed to either one of those things. It's when someone has true internal health, it's like their health radiates outward into their face and into their eyes and into all their features, versus when they have just something cosmetic done, but really their internal health is suffering, where then you tend to notice that, the size of their features don't really match, the tone of their body. And so like you were saying today earlier, Martha, and just like you were saying, Jodi, feeling great is such a big component of health, like in anti-aging, and how you look. So when you feel great, you tend to look great too. Let's get back to your big birthday, though.
It was awesome. What else do you want to know about my big birthday?
I mean, turning 50, so you must. It might have been a little hindered with the current situation that's happening.
Yes, it was. But you know what? I thank God every day that I'm here. I have the ability to be healthy. And yeah, COVID changed things a little bit this year as far as celebrating. But look, I'm here celebrating with you today. So it's definitely a special birthday.
So you're going to share some tips for anti-aging.
Yes.
All right.
First of all, you can't control your age. And that's something that a lot of people need to accept. You can't control that number. Every year it's going up. But you can control how you age. That's in your power. And when a person does what they need to do to practice anti-aging, they look great. They're able to do the things that they love to do, but they have less pain. They're overall more healthy. They have increased energy. Instead of being tired all the time, they have more brain fog. Their immune system actually keeps them healthy, which is very important in this day and age. It increases your muscle, which increases your metabolism. And when we increase our metabolism, we can stay lean. There's so many great things about trying to practice anti-aging techniques.
Martha, share a little bit about your story with, you started out with not such a great diet.
Yeah.
And how did you feel compared to when you started changing over? And then how did you feel then?
Well, very sluggish. I used to keep in my kitchen, we had a cabinet and it had this big center drawer. It was quite wide and deep. It was filled with every kind of junk food imaginable, everything from Swedish fish to gummy bears to milk duds, you name it, it was in that drawer because that's what I loved. Once I started on my path to wellness and I started to, kind of re-examine that drawer, and I thought, oh my God, this needs to go. But once I started eliminating all that excess refined sugar and I started to put clean foods in my body, it was a transformation. My thinking was clearer. I felt sharper at work. My memory was even just getting a little bit better. I was able to remember a little bit more than I had because I was putting healthier foods in my body.
Because I know it takes sometimes, you were actually coming from a physical place where you couldn't really walk so much and your diet was not at the best. So one of the things you probably start to notice first was how you mentally felt and your energy level, and then your knees started to become less painful.
Yeah.
And about how long into your journey did you start feeling that energy boost, the less sluggishness when you started to change your diet? Was it days or weeks or months before you started to see some improvement?
It was months because I didn't clear out the drawer immediately. It was It was just small measures. I would I'd eliminate this or eliminate that, or maybe not eat that sugary thing at 8:00 at night. So I would say it took some months to really start to feel much better.
So that's really interesting because I think it's very important to do it step by step and bit by bit versus all or nothing.
Yeah.
Some people can do the all or nothing, but a lot of us can't, and we usually fall backwards and are worse off than we started. But I just have a quick question here, which is, you would start to implement some change, you would start to have a bit of a diet change where you're eating something healthy, and then you went back to your drawer, and then you ate something probably sweet. So maybe you would think, maybe you would feel, I changed my diet a little bit, I'm starting to see some improvement, and then you went back to the drawer and you ate something, and then you would probably feel like a relapse almost.
Yeah.
So you see some improvement and then you'd relapse. You'd see some improvement and relapse. And that didn't take months for you to feel. That was probably almost in the same day.
Within a short span of time.
Okay.
I did.
And that just shows how your diet impacts your day-to-day energy.
Absolutely.
So Jodi, back to what we can do right now. What are some known anti-agers?
Some known anti-agers, the first is a good exercise plan and, of course, a good, clean diet. Sleep is huge. Meditation every day is huge. And avoiding things that are toxic for your body, like drugs, the sun, smoking. And I want to say alcohol, but there's a caveat to that, because alcohol can be a part of a healthy diet.
It can.
Yes.
So let's start there, because we're in the middle of summer, and we're coming, out of quarantine a little bit, and we're all trying to have some joy and pleasure in life, and enjoy things responsibly and in moderation. But what can we do with that and still have a clean diet?
Well, red wine, not the sweet versions, the more drier reds, have a lot of great antioxidants in them. So those are excellent to drink. They're very good for your cardiovascular health. So you can have your red wine as an indulgence. You can also feel free to drink any clear alcohols like vodka, gin, tequila in proper serving sizes, and proper serving sizes are huge. And it's recommended, though, that women maintain 1 drink per day or less, and men can have 2 drinks a day or less in order to still get the health benefits from everything else that they're doing, and also get the health benefits from the alcohol.
So there's a lot of wiggle room there then.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
All right, so now let's go over some clean foods. Let's talk about some clean foods that are also tasty.
Any type of lean protein with the right seasoning is amazing. Shrimp, chicken, lean beef, turkey, any of those are amazing. You can grill them, you can steam them, you can broil them. Any seasoning that you use on them is perfectly clean, as long as it's just a seasoning, like a spice. So those are great. Any vegetables are part of a clean diet. They're wonderful. My favorite way to make them is roasted with a little bit of olive oil, salt and pepper on them in the oven. You can have healthy carbs as part of a healthy diet. In moderation, of course, for women over 40, because we tend to digest carbs a little bit differently than we did when we were younger. Fruits, berries, the darker the fruit, the healthier it is for you, the more antioxidants it has in it, like blueberries, blackberries, raspberries, strawberries.
So Martha, when you started your training with Jodi, had you already been cooking food at home yourself?
Yes.
So you had been cooking probably breakfast, lunch, and dinner?
I wouldn't go that far. No
Okay.
breakfast. All my kids were, still in school at the time, but, so it was always on the go. But I did make their lunches and prepare my own. I actually was a fairly healthy cook when it came to meals and feeding my kids. It's how I was raised. My mother always made sure she had a healthy meal on the table. I think with me, the biggest downfall was the goodies. That was, I got from my father. He had the sweet tooth. So there was that balance. I got that sweet tooth from my father, but the good, healthy cooking from my mother. So
you had nutritious meals.
I did
3 times a day.
Yeah, for
and
the
your
most part.
biggest holdback was the junk food.
Yeah, absolutely. I wasn't, a sweet cereal eater, or I enjoyed my eggs and my yogurt and things like that.
There's a lot of studies that show how addictive sugar is, and so when you're telling me that you had to adjust step by step, because you had been eating that way for many, many years.
Oh yeah.
And then you had to come off and kind of detoxify from that sugar craving.
Yeah.
Very strong. But you already were supported by healthy nutrition.
Yeah.
So it's not lack of nutrition you had, it was that sugar craving that really held you back and was a big detriment to your body.
Yes.
What was one of the tricks that you had or tips that you could give to kind of, push off that sweet craving?
Well, I will say that you had turned me on to monk fruit sweetener. So that was very exciting, because then I was able to have something that I could sweeten up with a natural sugar. It's a natural sugar. And so I would maybe mix a little monk fruit sweetener in with plain yogurt and maybe some little bit of the PB2, like peanut butter powder, and just kind of turn it into like a nice little peanut buttery sweet dessert. But I tried very hard. Oh, and dark chocolate.
Yes.
I definitely tried to cut that craving by eating dark chocolate because I knew it had healthy benefits. So I went to dark chocolate, and that gave me that little bit of satisfaction of having something somewhat sweet, but it wasn't sweet enough that I went back for more. It wasn't like eating milk chocolate. So by having that dark chocolate, gave me the satisfaction without running back for more.
Those are two excellent snacks that I didn't really think of for the sweet craving, which was that you kind of just took some yogurt, you add a little monk fruit and some peanut butter powder, and you had yourself a nice treat right there when you definitely had a craving. And then you had another alternative, which is have a couple squares of dark chocolate, and that was so much better than heading over to that junk drawer.
That's right.
Tell me how you started, Martha, with implementing fitness and exercise into your life.
Well, in April of 2013, I had heard from another coworker that Jodi was starting a fast fit program, and basically it was just a quick little 15-minute segment of time that she incorporated light weights, resistance bands, BOSU, just different the ball,
the stability
ball, and so my friend and I decided, we're going to jump on board. We're going to take her class, and I tell you, at the end of 15 minutes, I was sweating because Jodi went from one exercise to the next. And we spent a lot of time laughing because it was funny. But the best thing about that program, it was quick and painless in the sense that I knew I didn't have to spend an hour working out because I didn't want to. And she gave us a lot of tips. She used to have printouts for us. She'd give us packets once a week or so to read through for the week, and with recipes and fitness tips and kind of like a did you know, like an FYI kind of thing with health and nutrition information that Pam and I used to read it all the time. It was just so informative, and it kind of evolved from there. Just I wanted more. It's addicting. It's the endorphins, right?
It's the good sugar.
It was the good sugar, because then it didn't end at that 15 minutes. It went to, I think I'll jump on the treadmill for 15 minutes. But then that 15 minutes went to, I think I'll stay on for a half hour. And then it went to heavier weights, and then it just evolved, and it's been great ever since.
It was like a fun routine that just kept building on each other.
Yeah.
And the one thing you could always rely on, worst case scenario, you had like a fun 15 fitness to do. And then you also had like a fun printout from Jodi.
Yes.
That would give you something you wanted to know that was helpful.
Yeah.
And on your good days, it sounded like you extended the time you worked out. You did your fitness and what you learned about nutrition and other tips. And then maybe on your downward days, you still had that condensed 15 fitness that kept going, and so you didn't have a day of nothing to do.
That's right. And it did. It ended up 5 days per week workout for me. So there is this conception of age and fitness. So some people are watching this thinking, I'm older, I'm female, I'm a male, I'm 40, 50, or 65. And what is for me? Is it so different from each other or where I'm at? But I think that has a lot to do with assessment, right?
Yes. When a person comes to me initially and they want to start exercising, I give a very comprehensive assessment prior to them actually getting a plan, because I need to ensure that exercise that I'm prescribing for them is going to be safe, is going to be good for them. And there are certain things, like when you're in your 20s, you feel like you can do anything. And maybe you're doing these things that are really difficult and they don't induce much pain. Now at 40 or 50, you may still be able to do those, but they may induce more pain than they did once before. And so your workouts have to be tweaked to evolve with you as you get older. That's a very normal part of fitness training. As far as a person coming to me, once I know what their goals are, what the equipment they have available is, what their wants and needs are, because somebody might want to work out only 3 times a week. Somebody might only have 15 minutes 5 times a week. I need to know that so that I can design a plan that's based on your wants, your needs, your abilities, your age, any modifications that would need to be added into your plan because of age or injury. And then we create a plan that's specifically for you.
And that's the biggest key that I'm taking away from here. It's all about assessment. It's all about customizing something specifically to you, your lifestyle, your physicality. And like you said, we all age kind of differently. We might be outwardly 40, 50, 60, but internally we could be younger physically or older physically. Bad knees, good knees, bad back, can do certain motions, can't do certain motions. Our metabolism might be faster or slower. So based upon the correct assessment, could you actually give them a plan, and then that condensed 15 minutes that you give them will be optimized exactly for their needs. Because if you took Martha's 15-minute plan, you gave them to someone else, it's either too much or too little for them,
Right.
and it wouldn't fit their goals. So as much as finding nice exercises on the internet, to have it put together correctly for you sometimes is a different story.
Well, and that you did when I started the program with Jodi, because of my knees. She did. That was a very important fact that I didn't mention, is that she was constantly, depending on what the other women were doing, she was constantly changing up what I was doing.
That was where I was going.
Yes, she tweaked it for me because of my knees, I couldn't, do what most of the other women were doing. So she always had an alternative for me. She'd say, all right, Martha, instead of that, do this. Or instead of that, do that. And so it worked for me. I wished I could have done what they were doing, but I couldn't. And I knew it wasn't realistic because I'd end up hurting myself. So she was constantly changing and modifying what I did in that class. And I think that's probably too why I became so successful at it, because it didn't become something so painful or like a drudgery, or I was dreading it because I'd walk out limping. It really was something that I felt good about doing, and I walked out of there still feeling a good workout. I sweat. I was, tired. I was like, wow, she really kicked my butt. All very different than the other women in the room. So it was great.
When I used to go to the gym, Jodi, before gyms aren't open right now, I would go until I felt good. I'll do a lot of exercise, and based upon how I felt that day, I would work out, treadmill, lift, a combination. And my saying for me was, when I get to the point in my workout where I feel good mentally and physically, I kind of taper off and try and take that throughout my day, as opposed to I saw a lot of people leaving the gym like they were totally burnt and exhausted. Now, I don't know if you would have gains faster that way. Maybe you can help me understand the difference between, really beating yourself up with your physical fitness versus achieving those goals and gains. Is more better?
Not necessarily, because there's this really horrible thing called overtraining that's out there. And I can speak to this because unfortunately I was a victim of it. People always think more is better. Harder gives you more results. And that's not necessarily the case, because eventually your body breaks down and it starts having reverse effects on your body and has poor effects on your health. You can get a very effective workout in by pushing yourself to about 80%. That's really like the sweet spot, is 80% of where, for instance, if you can lift a weight that's 100 pounds one time, what's the point? Try to lift something that's about 80% of that a few times so that you get that range of motion, you get that mobility. You don't need to lift the weight one time. I never really understood the concept of that. But you can get an amazing workout without beating yourself up. And so when you walk out of the gym, you really should be feeling energetic and like, wow, this is great. I'm going to go home, I'm going to shower, I'm going to get on with the rest of my day or my evening. Not, oh my God, I need to go home and just take a nap or sleep, or I need an ice bath. That's way too much working out. So there is that sweet spot, and that's the thing that I was going to talk about when I forgot. When people look things up on the internet is a wonderful tool, don't get me wrong. But a lot of times when they see things on the internet, first of all, they don't know how to construct them into a plan. They say, oh, I want to work my legs, and they look up 5 leg exercises, and that's what they do. But it can cause 2 things: an injury or a person to give up. Because if they're not getting the modifications that they need for their body, they're either going to get hurt or they're going to say, I can't do this. And then they just give up and they don't do it anymore. Whereas when you have a coach, they can develop a plan and construct the plan specifically for you and make those modifications that Martha was talking about. And the modifications help you to do the exercise. You're not suffering because your workout is not suffering because you're doing a modification. The modification is just the form of exercise that you're going to do until you build up. And Martha can attest to that. From the modifications that she used to do, she got stronger and then was able to progress to the next level and so forth. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the benefits of having somebody guide you. Somebody that's guiding you wouldn't have you leaving the gym crippled and in need of a nap when you went home.
I do remember the times when I thought that more was better, and then the next few days I'd be incredibly sore or incredibly tired. I also felt my food cravings go way up and down when I exhausted myself. Mm-hmm. So all of a sudden now I lifted so much or ran so hard, now I felt starving and wanting to just eat, the blood sugar go up and down, and now I'm scrounging around to put more calories in than I was even used to. And it didn't matter whether those calories were clean or not. Mm-hmm. So we have the overtraining, which may lead to over or under eating, which affects nutrition. When you're exhausted like that, trying to get quality sleep when you're totally exhausted, you might be sleeping, but it's not really quality and restorative. You're just wiped out and your body is just taking a break at the moment and not repairing fully. And then you're going so high and low you can't train consistently, so now you're not doing consistent results, which is why Martha's here. Martha's been consistent for 7+ years with the training, with the program, because of Jodi's coaching, putting the plan together, modifying it according to your lifestyle, life events, things that happen with or without equipment, not knowing what to do in certain instances, to then being able to be self-reliant on the training you have got, and then now sharing what you've been modifying back to Jodi and teaching Jodi tips on certain experiences that you've had going to a wedding. You portioned out your pasta when you went to Olive Garden. Instead of having the endless pasta, you changed it. You reported back to Jodi, and you were like, "That was a great idea. I haven't recommended or tried that yet." Mm-hmm. So then you were able to take that coaching and master it yourself, and then carry with it you for many years, retaining those results and not relapsing back. We're talking a lot about protein. We hear about it everywhere, from the paleo diet to just higher protein consumption based on age and gender. But Jodi, tell us the real truth on how much protein we should really be taking.
So most Americans take in way too little protein. People are afraid of protein because years ago they used to say that it would cause kidney damage and kidney failure if you took in too much protein, and that's been debunked. That is not a fact at all. Protein is required to help you build muscle, and as you age, you normally lose muscle. That's a natural part of aging. And the only way to defy that part of aging is to consume the protein and then work out. And then when you work out, your body takes that protein and builds muscle. When you build the muscle, now your metabolism speeds up. Your metabolism naturally decreases by 10% every decade after age 20. So in order to offset that, you need to build muscle so that your metabolism stays as sparked as it was when you were in your 20s. And the best way to do that, build muscle, is to consume adequate amount of protein from lean sources, and of course to do strength training exercises.
Without taking a measuring device, if someone weighs 120, 150 pounds, 200 pounds, what does that look like in terms of chicken or beef?
Well, each of them has their own amount of protein. The way that I always do protein is serving size, the palm of your hand. This
Okay.
part, this meaty part of your hand, this is 1 serving of protein for a female. A male can have a little bit more to up here.
Okay,
And that's
it.
considered 1 serving of protein.
For the day?
No, each meal.
Each meal?
Yes.
Okay, 3 times a day.
3 times a day. Okay? But that's just if you're talking about lean protein. You can get your protein from eggs, nuts, dairy products are great for protein. So you can get all that from other sources. It doesn't just have to be meat, chicken, or fish. But the average person, the easiest way to figure it out, and of course as a nutrition coach I can tell exactly how much a person would need based on their goals, is 1 gram for each pound of body weight. So if a person weighs 138 pounds, they would require 138 grams of protein each day in order to maintain that muscle that they need in order to keep their metabolism stoked throughout the rest of their life.
That's a really easy way to know how much or how little you're getting in a day. That really keeps it very simple. Martha, so you happened to watch Jodi and I's podcast on intermittent fasting, and you watched it a few times, and it inspired you. Tell us a little bit what happened after you watched that video.
Well, I decided because it was something that Jodi had tried, she researched, which I know she does. Can I say my nickname for you?
Yes.
So I gave Jodi a nickname years ago. And I call her a pit bull, because when Jodi latches onto something she's passionate about, she doesn't let go until she's immersed herself in it, and she's as knowledgeable as possible. So I know that when I speak to her, I'm putting my health and my life in her hands. I'm confident. So I call her my pit bull. So when I watched the podcast, I had told her in the past I was always afraid to try it because I'll be 62 in 2 months. And I thought, I don't know, for my age, it might, even though I'm in good health, it just might not be the thing for me. What if I get lightheaded while I'm working out? Or, what if I just, whatever, I had all these questions. But I decided to watch the podcast a few times, and I said, you know what? I wasn't even going to tell her I was doing it. I was just going to follow it on my own. It was like my own secret, and eventually tell her if I saw results, because I thought maybe I won't. Well, surprise, I did. So I'm in week 3 of the 16-8. Mm-hmm. So I eat that last meal between 8 and 9, like you, because it's about my bedtime, 10 o'clock. And then I don't eat until the next afternoon, 1 or 2 o'clock. I do the clean fast, so I do the black coffee, which I never did in my life, but I actually enjoy it now. I do the unflavored seltzer with the ice, and that's it until my allotted time to break the fast. And I cannot believe my body fat's gone down. My body's gotten into better shape. I have so much energy. Yesterday, my husband and I went outside after the aftermath of the storm, and I have a large plot of property, and it was just loaded with branches and debris. So I thought, well, someone's got to do it. So my husband and I, 9:30, quarter to 10, went out there, and I still hadn't eaten. I wasn't due to eat until roughly 12:30 at that point, the way I had ended the night before with my eating portion. I was out there raking till 12:30. Then I made sure I ate. I was so hungry at that point. But we raked, it was almost 4 hours. I was out there raking and raking and raking. I couldn't believe it. I was like, I cannot believe the amount of energy that I have even after not eating all these hours. It's amazing me that I'm so glad I tried it. And this is actually the first she's hearing about it, because I didn't want to tell her, just in case in case I didn't like it. And I let my food cravings overtake me. I thought, well, I'm not going to tell her. I'll just give in to them, and she'll, never know that I started it. But I have, and now it's a part of, just like everything else she has taught me. I always tell people it's just a part of my life, a part of what I do. It's in me. And now with the intermittent fasting, it's the same thing. I have it all set. I know what I have to eat, and it's been incredible. But again, it's if people have underlying health issues, like I know you spoke that day about people with diabetes or anything, heart problems, they really need to consult. I kind of took this under my belt because I'm confident of my health. And I thought, I'm just going to try this. But if someone, or they're unsure if they have health issues, people might not even be sure what they have, they're better off seeking out the right instruction, and making sure they do it right so it's a healthy fast, not something that could be unhealthy.
I have a very similar story myself, which was after our podcast on intermittent fasting and being educated on it, I was actually so inspired that I started to do it too. And I've actually been doing it every day since our past podcast, and I've actually had a remarkably easy time adjusting to it, because I work 5 days a week like everybody else. And so to get up and skip my breakfast and wait till about 4 o'clock is when I start to eat. And I go and I eat. I'm a little bit more stringent. I go between 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. But I usually end at 7 p.m. So I actually have a nice rest period, because as much as eating intermittently is healthy, I also come from the mindset of eating very late at night consistently could also not be the best, depending upon your lifestyle. So I kind of combine those together. And some days I feel so great that I go from having a space of 4 to 5 hours of eating to sometimes just one meal on that day, depending upon how I feel at that moment. And during the day, I do drink my black coffee, and I keep that to about one, small thermos for the day. And because we're so busy at work, it's kind of easy not to be focused on that. And I actually find going to eat, and my physical habits are to eat too much. But with intermittent fasting over the last couple of weeks, I really feel like my stomach has shrunk. And so I put out a serving that is probably a little bit too much for me. That's bigger than my palm, right? Because I'm just used to just putting what I put in a plate, not paying attention to it. Because if I were to, I'm like, that's too much. That's more. And then I get to about the end of my meal and I have a quarter left over. Sometimes I have half left over, and I'm like, I'm full. And I'm not wanting to go any further, and I have that willpower to stop, and I have the physical response in my body that says, we're good. We're good till tomorrow evening. And it's a really strange feeling to have never lived that way for your life, to all of a sudden be so easy to adapt to it, to have the physical urge to stop, to not have to struggle to stop with the portion size or when you're eating. And I did notice that when I had challenges was on the weekends, when I would meet up with some people or my family where they're not on the same schedule as myself. So they're used to having a bagel for breakfast, and then we make a sandwich for lunch, and then we make some sort of chicken or turkey dinner. And so that's not at all what I'm doing. And so I sometimes I would adjust my hours a little bit to be more in the middle of that range. And then sometimes I would just say, I'm good with just coffee for the morning, and then I would join them later on in the day for, when we're having something special to eat. And, my family, they don't like to eat by themselves. So they like to, if you're not eating with them, they feel like it's out of place.
Right.
And so that's definitely something that the social mindset that is a hurdle too, because you don't want to make your family feel displaced because you're not eating with them. But when they see you just drinking your coffee and joining in with them, they didn't feel so out of place with that. So I have my coffee, they have their bagel or whatever they're eating, and then I wait till later, and then it's not such a big deal.
So a couple of weeks ago, you had called me and told me about an injury that you had, and I was helping you to figure out what you should do next, and you did end up going to the orthopedic. And I just wanted you to share with everyone what the orthopedic said about your injury and your recovery because of the lifestyle that you've chosen to live.
That's right. Well, actually, it was about 2 months ago.
Oh my
flies.
goodness.
I had hurt my back because I was working out, and I had decided to do a maneuver on my Bosu that I should never have done. I was just being all, thought I was all that in a bag of chips. And I ended up hurting my back really bad, but didn't know it until the next morning. It was like the pain was bad. So I just laid on the couch and I was researching hot compresses, cold compresses. I don't know what to do. So I texted Jodi and I said, Jodi, I hate to bother you, but I'm getting mixed information here. For this type of pain, is it hot or cold? So she went on to explain to me, but she said, you really need to get that looked at. And she recommended me to go to this orthopedic emergency care. And I did. They took, I went back for an MRI and they saw a little arthritis and a little bit of a bulging disc. So they just gave me a little medication if I needed it. They wanted to see me in about a week. I went back to the doctor and he had me stretching, gently touching my toes. And he said to me, do you work out? And I said, I sure do. I said, I have been for about 7 years now. And he said to me, your condition would have been much worse if it hadn't been for the fact that you work out. He said, so you training and you lifting weights and doing your cardio, he said, has been very instrumental in you not experiencing more injury than that you do. And the extent of the injury, it hurt, but I got over it quickly. I mean, I was recovered within a week or two. I had to be very careful. I still worked out, but I had to do it very carefully. So again, another isn't, again, just looking good or even feeling good on the inside, but when an injury does happen, having the core strength, that was another big thing Jodi always instilled in me, was core strength. Do your planks, any crunches, whatever it was at the time, everything you do, it, tighten your core, your back, keep a good strong midsection, and that really had helped me quite a bit.
I think it says so much because the orthopedist is used to seeing, especially in America, not in good physical shape. And not only was he looking at you, he wasn't even seeing you as your age. He was just comparing how you were recovering so well. He was looking at your scans and your physiology. And then after that, he probably looked at your age and thought, I don't know anyone in your age group who has the physical health that you do. And that shocked him further. So not only were you in shape for you, for your age, and then you didn't have that dramatic setback because of the injury, and it really took him back, which is hard to do for orthopedists. It's hard to do for medical doctors. They see so many cases. They may not have a personal interest involved. It may just be statistical for some. But because of your health and how good it is, it really set him back, and he took a harder look at you, and he said that to you, and he was able to see that.
So it makes it all worthwhile every day that, I go upstairs and I work out, and there's days I don't feel like it. But you don't go by your feelings. You do what's best. And getting that report, or when the doctor told me, well, I can do both knee replacements at the same time because of your health, that keeps you going. You just keep going and going because you know it's the best thing. Pays off.
It's an investment in your health.
Yes, exactly. And it's a good example to those around you, your family. My grandson, I teach him a lot. So it's contagious. I look at her and I'm like, that just keeps me going.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having us.
Anytime.
It's a pleasure.